Hey guys, today I'm going to be showing you how to make a laminate slingshot like this. So in this tutorial I'll show you every step of making the slingshot, including how to make and attach the bands and the lanyard. In the video description of this video there'll be a full list of all of the tools and materials needed to make this slingshot. But first let's see how it shoots. So this slingshot's made out of a natural fork, and first step you need to do is to find the natural fork. So this is the natural fork that I found, and it's good because it's nice and chunky, so I can get some good curves in it, and also it's got nice even forks. So for drying out the slingshot, what you need to do is you need to seal the ends with wood glue or varnish. I've used wood glue to seal my ends, and you can't really see it because it dries invisible. The slower you dry out the natural fork, the less likely it is to crack. But if you really need to do it for speed, you can take a chance and leave it on the radiator overnight or put it in a microwave on low temperature. The way that I dry out my naturals is I seal the ends and then I just forget about them for a really long time. I cut this natural off a rhododendron tree that fell down in my garden over a year ago, so it's completely dry now. The more chunky the fork, the slower it tends to dry out and the less likelihood it has of cracking. So once you've got most of the bark off your slingshot, it should look something like this. So now you need to decide what shape your slingshot's going to be. This slingshot's going to be a hammer grip slingshot, so I want it to have a palm swell here and a smaller swell on the other side. So for the wood on the palm swell, I'm going to be using some 18mm multiplex, so I want to rasp this to completely flat first. So I've got everything ready to glue, and this is the first piece of wood which I'm going to laminate onto the slingshot, and it's just some multiplex plywood, and I really like multiplex plywood because when you shape it, it gives you a really nice contouring effect with the different layers. This 2-part epoxy is the glue which I'm going to be using. Since it dries really hard and strong, you can also use wood glue. Now clamp the wood tight and leave it to dry. So this is what the wood looks like once it's dried, and as you can see there's glue all the way up at the edges, so there's no gap between the wood and the slingshot frame. Now I'm going to roughly rasp this into shape. So now that this has been rasped to roughly to shape, I'm going to add in more laminations using the exact same method. So these are the 2 bits of wood which I'm going to laminate on next. So I've got these bits of wood clamped up now, and I need to wait for the glue to dry. So now that I've got everything filed down into a basic shape, I'm going to start to shape the slingshot properly so that it fits my hand well. So first I'm going to make this top bit where the front of your hand goes, right up here. Right, so now that I've rasped that bit out, I'm going to do the palm swell now. Now I've pretty much done this top bit where you hold it with the top bit of your hand, and to make sure that you've got it small enough, if you grip it like this, you should almost be able to get your finger to touch your palm. Now I'm going to file this bottom bit where my little finger is. Right, so I've pretty much got the rough shape of the bottom handle, and I added in some finger grooves here. I'm gonna cut a notch into the handle here and add some of this metal into the notch. So now I'm just gonna glue this bit of metal in. So the glue's in place, I've just gotta wait for it to dry now. So now the glue's dried and I've filed down the metal a little bit more. So now I've got all the metal filed down so that it's flush with the wood, and it makes quite a nice little point, and I think it'll look really nice when I sand the slingshot up to 400 grit. Now I'm going to focus on this part here. So now I'm going to drill some small holes in where these lines are and put pins in. This is optional, it doesn't really add anything to the slingshot apart from making it look good, but I'm going to do it anyway. Now I'm going to glue the pins into these holes. So I've got the pins in and the glue's just about to dry. So the glue is dried, now I'm going to cut off the excess and file it down. But now I'm going to finish off the forks. So now I'm just going to cut the forks roughly off about where I want it. And I'm going to have to lower this fork a little bit because it's not the same height as this one. Also note that I've cut the forks off in line horizontally with the way that the fork is going, not so that it's flat like this, so that they're both at an angle. When you're cutting your fork, take in mind that the lower the fork, the less strain you feel on your wrist. Now I'm going to file the top of the slingshot forks to make them even. Also, as you can see, I've got this kind of U shape at the bottom of where my fork is, and I always like to have that on my slingshots because I think it looks much nicer than just a V. So once you've got your forks and everything the right size and shape, you want to file a curve gradually going down along here, and this is where the bands are going to attach. So now I've filed these good curves in here, I'm going to file a notch in to help the bands attach. So this is what the finished band attachment part should look like, and now I need to do it on the other one. Right, so now I have the basic shape of the slingshot with the grooves, the bands to attach all done, and I'm really happy with the shape. Now I want to use normal metal working files to get out all of the deep scratches from the rasp. So now I've filed the slingshot down and I've got out most of the deep scratches from the rasps, and you can really see the grain in this darker bit of wood. Before I move on to sanding, I'm going to drill a hole for the lanyard now. So with the hole for the lanyard drilled and the slingshot feels really nice, now it's time to move on to sanding. So I'm going to start with some 100 grit sandpaper, then I'm going to work my way up to 400 grit. So this is what the slingshot looks like once I've sanded it up to 100 grit, and you can instantly see the grain a lot more clearly, and this darker patch of wood looks really nice. Now I'm just going to work my way up to 400 grit. So I've worked my way up to 400 grit with the sandpaper, and the slingshot is so smooth. Also, I've polished up the seal to 800 grit. Now it's time to add a coat of linseed oil to bring out the grain. So this is what the linseed oil does. This is after it's had 2 coats of linseed oil, and this is before. And this white wood, as you can see, you can barely see the grain, but then this is the white wood afterwards, and these 2 slingshots are made of the same wood. So first just use an old rag or cloth to wipe all of the dust and dirt off the slingshot. Then you get the oil that you're using and you apply a layer. Alternatively to oil, you can use varnish as well. The grain you can see much more easily in the darker patch of wood. Now I'll leave the slingshot to dry, and then I'll apply another layer. So I've added 2 layers of the oil, and the slingshot looks really nice now. You can really see the grain in this dead bit of wood, and it really brings out a nice contrast in the multiplex. Now I'm going to show you how to make a lanyard like this. First you're going to need some string or some paracord. I'm using this old shoelace. Then you need to thread it through the hole at the bottom of your handle that you should have drilled earlier. Then you need to fold it over and cut it off where you want to. Then you need to find a bolt or a washer that is about the right size to fit on both of these strings nicely. And if you can't find one the right size, you can always drill a hole the right size, but you want there to be a bit of friction for you to move it. Then tie a knot in the end of both of these strings and pull it really tight. Then once you've pulled it really tight, get a lighter and just burn some of the knot. Then while it's still melted, pull on it with the pliers. So then you'll end up with a solid knot that's not going to come undone by accident. So that's the lanyard done. Just put it over your wrist and tighten up the bolt, and then you're done. Now I'm going to show you how to make and attach the bands. So the bands that I'm going to be using is going to be TheraBand Gold. Alternatively, you can just use TheraBand Black or Office Rubber or tie it in a tube, but none of them give as good performance as TheraBand Gold. I buy my TheraBand off eBay, but you can usually buy it from most gyms. For the leather, I'm using a strong leather from some old boots. You can buy leather off the internet, but it's much easier just to salvage it from things like belts or boots. To calculate the size and length of my TheraBand, I use an online band calculator made by York Sprague, and there will be a link in the description to this webpage. You simply put in your band preferences and then click calculate, and then it will tell you what length and size your bands need to be. Note that this calculator only works for TheraBand Gold, and if you're using other sources of rubber, you'll have to just work by trial and error. So first draw out the profile of your bands onto your TheraBand. I'm going to be cutting a TheraBand using a rotary cutter, as when you use scissors sometimes it leaves little nicks in TheraBand which can rip quite easily. Then cut out your TheraBand. Fine, now it's time to make a pouch. So for making your pouch, first draw out the shape of your pouch onto the leather. It should be just as wide as the ammo which you're going to be using. Then cut it out. For making the holes in the pouch for the bands to attach, I'm going to be using a hole puncher. If you don't have a leather hole puncher, you could just use a drill. So this is what the pouch looks like when it's done. You don't have to hammer a center hole, it's just I like to have one. Now you need to attach your bands to the pouch. So first you thread your bands through the hole in the pouch. Have about 2 centimeters excess going through the other side of the pouch and fold it in half over like that. Then you need to get a thin strip of TheraBand or other elastics and wrap it really tightly around the excess. So once you're nearly at the end of the rubber, you need to get some thin string and make a loop in it like that and put it over where you're wrapping the rubber around, and then wrap the rubber once or twice over the string. Then get the last bit of rubber that you have left and put it through the loop in the string and pull the string tightly until it pulls the rubber back under the loops which you did over the string. Then just do that again and you've got a really strong band attachment method that will not come undone. So now it's time to attach the bands to the slingshot, and we're going to be attaching them on the front of the slingshot and they'll be pulling over the top of the fork like that. So first make sure your bands are straight and then put the bands over the front of the fork. Then get another piece of TheraBand or elastic and put it over the bands and then start to wrap it round. Then use the exact same method with the string to pull the rubber through. Now repeat that method on the other fork. Then chop off all the excess bits of rubber. And now your slingshot's complete and ready to fire its first shots. Let's see how this one shoots. Always remember to wear safety glasses though, just to protect your eyes. So first I'm going to shoot at this plastic milk carton. The ammo which I'm going to be using for my slingshot is going to be some 15mm steel ball bearings. These can be bought off Amazon or eBay. You can also use lead ball bearings for much higher impact. I have a catch net set up behind my milk carton so that if I miss I won't lose the ball bearing. The steel ball easily penetrated into the milk carton and is still inside. So now let me talk you through how to use the slingshot. First you get your ball bearing or your ammo, and then you put it in the center of the pouch and pinch it between your index finger and your thumb. Then you hold the slingshot like you would a hammer and point it towards your target. And then pull back the bands with your slingshot and then aim over the forks at your target, and as you fire, flick your wrist forwards like that. As you can see, the impact from the slingshot has really beaten up the milk carton and most of the balls are still inside there. Now I'm going to shoot at this piece of wood, but I'm going to shoot at it at an angle so that when the steel ball bounces off it doesn't ricochet and hit me. So as you can see, the ball bearing made a huge dent in the wood. So as you can see, the ball bearing left another massive dent in there. This slingshot is definitely not a toy. If you do decide to make a slingshot like this, I hold no responsibility for any damage or injury caused with or while making this weapon. This weapon is very dangerous and it must abide by the local laws in your area. Also, when you're shooting with your slingshot, make sure you're doing it in a safe area with something to stop the ball bearings after they've missed or hit the target. I really hope you enjoyed this video about this laminate slingshot. Check out some of my other videos for more cool slingshots and weapons. Also, if you have any recommendations for what I should make in a future project, please send me a personal message or comment below.